Now in the last couple videos, we did a few things. We made an index.html page, right here. We had a style.css file that had all our styles. And we have a script.js that we have used to authenticate with Google using the Firebase console. Now everybody should go into their Firebase app and click on whatever they named their project. I named mine Conexión. So if you had that, I'm going to make this a little smaller so it's easier to see. Now, as we said before in Firebase, there are a couple different options. As of right now, we have only used the authentication service in Firebase. And that allowed us to create a sign-in method where users can either sign in with an email and password or with Google. Everybody had that down, correct? Now, for some of you, it wasn't working because you needed to come down to the authorized domain section and add preview.c9users.io as a custom domain. To do that, you have to click add domain and type in preview.c9users.io so that this will work with the domain for Cloud9. Now, we've talked a little bit about domains in the internet section of our course. We've talked a little bit about DNS servers, or you've watched videos from code.org about them. We're going to focus more on DNS, URLs, namespacing, all that goodness in a little bit. But for now, we are going to finish up the part of this app that allows for authentication. Is everybody cool with that? Now, in the actual app itself, if you preview the index.html, pop it into a new browser, yours looks something like this, I'm guessing. If it doesn't, it's all good, but this is kind of where I want you to be. Now, we used a little bit of CSS Grid and a little bit of Flexbox to make this work. We're actually going to change this up right now to look a lot nicer, and then we're going to move from there. Is that cool with everybody? So a lot of the HTML and CSS I'm going to have you get rid of. Don't get mad at me. We're going to rewrite it. It's going to look nicer than this. Is that fine with everybody? Fantastic. Now, the first thing we're going to refactor is our index.html. So in your index.html, which I've put all of the code in the Slack for you, you have a couple things. In the head of your file, you have this link to our style.css. You also have this link here to a thing called material icons, which allows us to use Google's material design icons. So these are two style sheets. We also have two scripts in the head. One to initialize Firebase, or to pull in the Firebase library, and one script to actually initialize Firebase itself and connect to your project. Now, it knows that it's your project because this config object, actually I'm going to change that to const because I like const. This config object has a couple different keys in it. An API key, which lets your project know exactly which Firebase project we're connecting to. The authorization domain, which we use for authorization. The database URL, which we can use to store data about users and whatever we want. The project ID. The storage bucket, which has like files, videos, audio, all of that would go inside the storage bucket. And a messaging sender ID, which allows us to send messages. And then right below that, we actually initialize the application itself using this config object. You had a question, Ishmael? Yeah. Not necessarily. So this code has to be added so that your HTML file knows to communicate with this exact project in Firebase. You can make multiple projects. You notice that I have at least 3 projects in here? You can make multiple projects in Firebase. So the only way it knows which Firebase project to connect to is by using this config object right here and then initializing the application as soon as the page loads. Does that make sense? Now below this in the body we have a nav bar with a logo and some links and a main section with a login holder. We had some divs there that I got rid of, and then a footer, and then we're loading in our script.js at the bottom. Now what I want you to do right now is we're going to refactor the nav bar, and we're going to delete most of the CSS and start over. Is that cool with you? So what I want you to do is inside this main section, actually no, let's do the nav bar first. Inside the nav section, all I'm going to put in the nav section is an H2. Nothing else is going to go inside the nav bar except that H2. So I'm deleting everything else inside it. So it looks like this. Now next to the H2, I'm going to put an icon. And that icon is going to have the class equal to material icons, which allows us to use all of the material.io icons that are available to us. Now, if you want to find out all the icons you can use here, you can go to, I think it's like materialdesign.io. By the way, the link, the only reason we can do that is because we have this link here, which pulls in all the CSS for the material icons library. And that allows us to put an I tag right here, which is icon tag, give it a class of material icons, and then say which material icon do I want to use. To find out which ones you want to use, you can just go to material icons, Google it, and you'll see material.io/tools/icons will give you all of the different icons we are allowed to use. Now, there are a lot of them in here. It's loading them. Okay, here they are. There's a ton of icons in here. You can pick from whichever one you want. I am going to use, let's see, which one do I like to use? These all look nice, actually. But I'm going to go with, I don't know. I'm going to go with the power icon. I'm going to, let's see, power. And let's just see what that looks like when I press save. This is what the power icon is right there. It's that little plug, like the electrical outlet plug. But you notice that now my logo and my icon are on opposite sides of the nav bar. So I'm going to go in and change up the CSS for that also. To do that, go to the style.css. Okay, all of this looks fine, but I'm going to add a few additional styles here. The first style I'm going to add is I'm going to add some fonts, so we don't have to use monospace for the whole thing. I'm going to get some nice fonts into my project. To get fonts, I'm going to go to Google Fonts, just like this. Type Google Fonts into your Google search, and you will see this fonts.google.com. Open that up right now. Now, Google Fonts is great because it allows you to pick from any of a number of collection of fonts that you want to pull into your project. Now, what I want you all to do right now is I want you to find 2 fonts of your own. I want you to pick one font for titles, for like headers, anything with like H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and one font for normal text. So pick whatever 2 you want. I'll give you a couple minutes here. Find 2 fonts. One for your headers and one for your normal text. Take a few minutes, do that right now. We'll come back to you in a second. The first font I'm going to pick is Unica 1. This one right here. I'm using this one for my H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, whatever. Now to get that, you click this little plus sign right there. Everybody see the plus sign? Click the plus sign. Select this font. You'll see it now. It says 1 family selected. I want to select another one as well, and I'm going to pick Carla. This one right here. This is for all of my text is going to be Carla. And if you want to see what it looks like, just type some stuff in here, and you can see what your text is going to look like. It's a good way to figure out what kind of font you're going to want to use. So if you want to use that one as well, you click the plus sign. And it should say 2 families selected. Everyone right now make sure yours says 2 families selected at the bottom. If it does, you're good to go. If it doesn't, make sure yours says 2 families selected before moving on. After you finish that, pop open the 2 families selected section, and you'll see a place to either embed or customize your code. Right now, I'm just going to click this import sign and not customize it at all. After I click import, I'm going to copy all of this right here that says @import URL. Copy that whole thing. Yeah, you're just going to copy everything inside the style tags. The part that says @import, it should have @import a link to fonts.googleapis.com/CSS, and then just say family equals, and it should give you both of the families you selected right there. If you have that, you're good to go. And all you need to do is go into your style.css page, and at the very top, right above everything, you're just going to import them just like that. It's going to say @import URL, and it's going to import all of the Google fonts you just used. Then right below that, I'm going to add some generic styles. This is just something that allows us to style things a little more easily. This is what I always do, honestly, for most of my code, so don't trip too much on this. This is just generic boilerplate intro HTML style stuff. So yeah, you should put these two things right here. This is just the generic, and by the way, change the font family. I'm gonna change mine to Carla for everything. But this is just the generic boilerplate for when I set up most HTML CSS projects. So this is all you need right now. And once you have all this, we're gonna be good to go to start actually building what our page is gonna look like. So go ahead and save it. Make sure your fonts have changed from monospace to whatever the new font you picked is. I chose Carla, and so I should see here, it should, if I refresh this, give me my Carla font, and there you go. You see Carla all over the place, which looks lovely, and that's what I'm going to use. So everybody, once you have that, you're good to go. We'll finish this up in the next video.